good evening, and good evening. Welcome again to the Kiss Corner. I am Cassandra Williams, aka Coach Kiss, mwah, and you have come into another episode of the Kiss Corner. If you are a regular, please, sit back, get ready. I always got something good to share. If this is your first time joining, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me give you a little brief background about the Kiss Corner. The Kiss Corner is a safe space for women like me who have traversed difficulties in personal relationships and have had to leave toxic relationships, and so can basically use this platform as a space and a place to be able to you know, do the work that's necessary to elevate into a higher version of yourself. And so that in essence is a brief of the cornerstone of the Kiss Corner. And so again, I thank you. I thank you. If you are joining us on our YouTube channel, Empowered Voices Network, please go ahead and subscribe, comment, share, do all the things so that we know that, our word is getting out there and that you're showing your love. And if you are with me on my Facebook channel, again, give me those likes, those cares, those loves. If you're hitting us up live, even if you're on replay, do the same thing. And then just type in there, give me a hashtag replay. Again, we want these algorithms to start moving us into the stratosphere, right? So that our word can get out. And so, without any further ado, because again, I do not want to waste your time at all. I'm going to go ahead and get started into tonight's episode. In case you haven't yet seen, it is entitled, I Don't Need to Build a Case. You handed me the evidence, right? You don't get to rewrite the story just because the ending didn't serve you. And so that is what I'm speaking to tonight. As you can tell, it's touchy, it's personal. Not that it hasn't been and that it mostly isn't at times, but yeah, this is recent. And it struck a nerve. And so I always try to, once I kind of get out of my way and get out of my feelings, right? um, try to take out of it, okay, so like, God, what's the message, right? What's the message? What's a takeaway? What are some takeaways for me through whatever the experience is? And they seem to be coming fast and furious in many areas in my life, personally, professionally, you name it, right? They're coming. And so this one, of course, is a personal share. And sorry, guys. And so, again, I just want to hope that this resonates with someone, at least one person out there. And so, I'm willing to be vulnerable enough to share, right, in my story. And so, let me start. I didn't stitch this story together out of thin air because I didn't need to. When you've been through enough, the truth stacks itself in police reports, court orders, and memories your mind still carries. And when someone tries to flip the script, accusing you of building a case against them, then you have to stop and ask yourself, right? Are they confused? Or are they just scared now that they no longer have control of the narrative, or at least the control they thought they once had? And so tonight's episode is not just a story, right? It's a reckoning. It's for every woman who's been blamed for her departure from a toxic relationship and environment. It's for every mother who protected her peace and her babies only to be called bitter, dramatic, or calculating. And so let me get into it, right? And it's like, what is she talking about? So it started like any other day. Today is Thursday. So I think this was like Monday or Tuesday. The days are running together, y'all. And I was doing what I do, right? Trying to keep things stable between me and my ex and for our kids. And I typically will call either on our way to school, and I say our way because I work at my children's school, or on the way in. And so, because I'm making the call, it's through the car phone, so the speakerphone is on. Routine, right? The kids are looking forward. We hadn't spoken in a few days. So I'm like, okay, let me put the call in, get their hellos and what have you. And so it wasn't about me ultimately, right? This was a call that was for, and as far as I was concerned, for and about them. And so he picks up the phone and right away skips over any greeting. And I'm not talking about something elaborate, hey, what's up? What's going on? How are things going? I'm not even saying it. Just a simple hi, not even. Right. So when I say skipped over a greeting, I mean skipped over the greeting. And it became, what's your motive? Right? What's your objective? What are you trying to do? What you trying to prove? You trying to set up an abuse case against me? What you trying to prove? Like, what's your objective? What's your objective? What's your motive? And it just kept coming, right? This barrage. What's your motive? So I'm driving. My son is sitting here and he's like, what? Like, what's going on? And, he's been totally talked over. And my girls are in the back and they're just looking like just befuddled, right? As I am, because I'm like, what is this? Like, you know, again, I'm not expecting all of this. And so I'm stunned, right? I'm trying to figure out like what? And at first I really was just with devoid of thought, for lack of a better way of putting it, because it wasn't expected. And then as I'm hearing the questions over and over again, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I get it, right? So word is getting out. So I guess the Kiss Corner is making its rounds. Okay. So we calling to connect, right? Or at least I'm calling for them to connect with their dad, and he's responding like I'm calling the police. And so, what is all of that about, right? First and foremost, as often is the case, is another confirmation, right? When someone greets your peace with paranoia, they're either guilty of something or scared of accountability, or perhaps some semblance of both. But in any case, what did I do? What do you think I did? Let me tell you what I did. I hung up. And I hung up for multiple reasons, right? Not out of disrespect, but out of protection. And what is it that I was protecting? For my kids, right? I'm protecting for all of us our sanity, our peace, and our peace of mind, because the level of confusion just in 5 seconds that had been caused in the car and within our general environment was astounding. And it was totally unnecessary. And so I'm like, you know what? The best way to end this is to end it. And so I hung up the phone. And so now let me be clear that, his questioning about, what you trying to build a case of abuse against me. I don't need to build a case, right? The case was already made by him. 2 police reports in one night on me. And this is, I'm not going in any particular chronological order, because this was over 16 years. Now, I'm not going to say the whole 16 years. I'm going to say maybe within that last 11, 10 to 11. Court dates where I stood not as a bitter ex, but as a mother with documentation. Orders of protection that were filed to protect myself and my children. Now, these are not just faint memories or anything. I have the paperwork for all of this beneath me right now where I sit. So, what I'm saying is in no way a fallacy, right? Because, it had once gotten just that serious. And so, like I said, this isn't fiction at all. It isn't any type of dramatization. It's documented, it's time stamped. And at one point, court sealed. Was that signed, sealed, delivered? I mean, it was real. And so, no, I don't need to orchestrate a fall, right? And what I come to realize, but again, I wasn't going to give it, well, even if I wanted to give the statement, I wasn't allowed to because I was barraged with all of these accusatory questions, right? But just know that in situations like this, you, meaning the perpetrator, the abuser, the ex in my case, right, orchestrated the collapse and I just walked out of the wreckage. So that needs to be well known, right? Here's what people don't tend to tell you though. And when you walk away from dysfunction, it doesn't always end quietly. The guilt kicks in at times, shame gets loud, and those who once controlled the chaos try to rewrite the story. And so he tried to frame my decision to leave at one point as, a sudden, just abrupt departure. You left a well paying job and you left a loving home. And this was in conversation just a couple of weeks ago. Let's talk about that loving home, right? The name calling, emotional neglect, children overhearing toxic exchanges, police being weaponized, alcohol flowing more than empathy. And when I tell you that was not on my part, what it wasn't was love. That was liability to my peace and to the peace of our children. And so I didn't flee stability, I reclaimed my safety, our safety. So know that when people start seeing you standing firm or firmer than where you once stood, and when they see you, even if it's not by much, but you're slightly doing better, right? In my case, the kids are thriving. I've got boundaries that I don't bend anymore. And his instinct now is to question my motive. Projection is real, right? But I refuse to carry the shame of someone else's behavior anymore. It's not happening. I am allowed to speak the truth, my truth, and I have facts to back things up. Like that's just a no win, right? Whether I want to acknowledge it or not, because to be honest, I'm not proud of the truth that I hold, but it's there. The facts that I have, rather, they're there. Like I said, I'm not proud of having it. I wish they never existed, but the documentation stands. So that in no way is a lie. It is in no way a fabrication. It is in no way a case builder. It is what it is. It's fact. So listen to me. If you have been in this type of situation, if you have been questioning whether your truth counts, if someone is trying to make you second guess what you lived, right? Not just what you know, what you think, what you lived. Let me remind you that you don't need a case, you don't need a courtroom, you don't need permission to validate your own survival. Right? So I'm not setting anybody up. I'm speaking up. And so are you. And if you haven't gotten there yet, just know that you will and you can. And your speak up is part of your come up. And the sooner you get there, the better off you'll be for you. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. It's something that can never be predicted or prevented. When you're ready, it's there for you. Protect your peace, right? So for me, I didn't build the case, I carried it in my breath and in the way that I slept, the way that I had to start praying, in a way that I had to learn how to speak as me again because I didn't like who I had become or who I was becoming. I was bitter, I was angry, I was resentful, and I was easily enraged. And that had become a foundation of our relationship. Does that sound like a relationship that you want to be a part of? No, not me either. And so I knew that it had come to that point that I had to leave. And I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's necessary. So you get tired of these points of arguing and arguing over nothing, right? Arguing for argument's sake, arguing for things that have happened in somebody else's past that are unresolved, and you're left there to live your current life in somebody else's past figments. Unfair. And you can't compete with it. But what you can do is reclaim you and who you really are. When you raised your voice and you slammed the doors and you picked up the phone and called the police, and I had to pick up the phone and call the police. I stood in our kitchen and I felt broken at one point, and I had definitely made the decision that enough is enough. That was evidence given to me. So these questions about motives and goals and objectives and what are you doing? Nothing, sir, but speaking truth, speaking life, and sharing it so that anybody else going through the same or similar situations don't necessarily have to take every single step that was taken here and can hear these words and say, you know what? It resonates. I get you. I get it, sis. And I'm ready to make a move. This isn't revenge. This is release. And so, you know what's really wild about it, right? Is that when someone hands you evidence themselves and then tries to convince the world that you made it all up, it's not your burden to carry anymore. You let them sit with the parts that they refuse to remember because if they refuse to remember it, then they really have no choice, right? But you and me, we get to walk in the full clarity of what we've survived. Not perfectly and not pain free, but free nonetheless. So before I wrap up tonight, I want to leave you with a few questions to consider, not for the sake of guilt or shame, but for honesty and healing. What's one moment when you knew it wasn't just a rough patch, but a pattern? So, in other words, not just a bad day, but a cycle, right? Because we all have bad days. We can be honest about that. But there's a difference between a bad day here and there, and then when you realize, wait, this is a repeated cycle, this is a pattern. Question 2. Have you ever been made to feel like you were the problem when all you were doing was trying to protect your peace? And how long did you carry that false story? Because it can happen for a long time. 10 years, I told you, at least. What evidence have you been carrying that you've never said out loud? Like I said, I got some documentation right here by my feet from years ago. doesn't mean that it didn't happen and make it any less hurtful. And so, what is it for you? Is it a journal entry? Is it a screenshot? Right? What is it for you? Are there physical bruises? Is it a bruised heart? Is it a weary mind? Is it some combination thereof? What is that for you? The evidence that you have been carrying that you've never said out loud. Number three, what false narrative about your past are you ready to reject today? I'm going to say that again. What false narrative about your past, or your present for that matter, are you ready to reject today? And finally, what would you say to someone else still stuck in a kind of love that could be costing them their life? And when I say that, I don't always mean like your life in a life and death sense, although unfortunately there are many who face that. But it just could be life as you care to live it, your mind, you know? It goes through a lot. And I remember a friend of mine mentioning that, your brain is healing. It's been hurt, it's been traumatized, and it deserves the opportunity to heal. And so you have to treat it as such, just as you would a wound that you can see physically on your body. That's real, right? Emotional scars exist and they hurt. So, as evidence of this evening and this broadcast and the Empowering Voices Network, right? Your words may just be somebody's wake up call. So, I want you to consider that and know that we don't always get closure from people who hurt us. And again, I'm not even always talking about a physical hurt because hurt is hurt, whether it's emotional, it's physical, it's psychological, whatever it is hurt, and you don't always get closure, but we can close the door to their access. So keep your peace, protect you, protect your babies if you have babies, and don't ever let someone else convince you that your memory is a lie because it's not. Thank you so, so very much for joining us this evening. It was a lot, but I pray that it has helped at least one soul, right? At least one. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Facebook, give us those hearts, those loves, because this is real, right? Life is real, and nobody deserves to play with yours. You got a voice, and you have the right to speak up and to speak out about your life. So, this is Cassandra Williams, aka Coach Kiss. Mwah. I thank you for joining for another episode of the Kiss Corner. I want you to please, please, please continue to elevate as you move along your healing journey. Before we go this evening, I just have to let you know, especially if you're out there watching us on YouTube, of course, and then my Facebook friends get to know that tonight's episode is also here from Empowered Voices Finding Strength in Survivors, right? It's a YouTube platform that is committed to amplifying the stories of real people with real scars and real strength. So abuse tries to silence. This movement speaks life because this is a movement, y'all. It speaks life. So if you're watching live, the scrolling link at the bottom of your screen can take you directly to the Empowered Voices channel. If you're on Facebook, head to the pinned comment section for the link and let this resource become a part of your healing. Because when survivors speak, silence loses. So we'll see you again next week. Same back time, same back channel. Thursday, Eastern Standard Time, 8:30 p.m. We thank you so much for your time. Mwah. And we will see you again next week. Have a good one. Good night.